Frequent awareness of death emotionally depresses a person. Depresses. That's what some people have told me. They keep their minds almost exclusively on life. I, however, stay aware of life and death as often as I can remember to do it. And if anything, it works the opposite way for me. Death is always right there, just like life is. Just look around. Both are right there, right here. Leaves fall and buds grow. Every dog has his day. Dead cells drop off our skin and little bugs eat them. Every breath, every moment of our lives could be the one when death happens to our whole organism. It's always right there to happen, and it will happen. Life might get depressing if we fail to compare it with death regularly. And then maybe even get worse if we suddenly switch over and then think about death for a while. Sure. One might do well to keep both life and death fresh in mind more. It cultivates appreciation for the both of them, and can go on to spawn awareness of the two as phases of some same thing. A person then stands a good chance of even developing awareness of a oneness underlying all life, or of one life underlying all, however you say that. And the awareness of life being everywhere, and nowhere being without it. And that maybe there really is no such thing as dead matter in the first place, only changes in its organization. Conscious substance in motion. I thought it again. Conscious substance in motion. Hey, what's up? You stopped. I looked up. Oh yeah, Mike. No, I was just thinking. Conscious substance in motion. Everything, Conscious substance in motion. He agreed. That's cool. Sounds like a good idea, too. Seems to be working so far. I started walking beside him again. Seems so. And we laughed. I don't know how far we'd gone with my mind somewhere else. I guess it wasn't all that bad, though. I mean, my mind was on life and death. And there we were, walking on a trail in some woods we'd never been in before. I guess that's as good a place as any to have my mind on life and death, I mean, why not? Just, I guess probably not while walking on a trail, but I was with my friend. Who cares? It's just weird, It's just weird how sometimes you can be going along, knowing full well what you're doing, and then you suddenly shift, and you think, whoa, hey, who was driving just now? And at the same time, you remember there was nobody else in the car, just you all by your lonesome, driving through one mind zone and then into another. We had to get past a sizable web of tree roots crossing the path. Mike stepped on a couple of the most sensible ones to step on. You could tell they'd been stepped on plenty before we ever came along. And then there were a lot of rocks, too, right around there at the same place, partially exposed by erosion. I went ahead and I used them more than Mike did, but at the one spot we both had to hold on to the same little tree there, though, to pull ourselves up a bit. The area was pretty steep right there. The trail, or it was really just a path. It must have been there for a long time. Maybe the Red Man had used it back in the day, wearing his clothes, speaking his language. Or maybe it was more like over in the forests of Europe somewhere, where a lucky traveler might come upon an inn near dusk and get some hot food. and some grog, and some sleep for the night, while wolves howled outside at a moon they could not see. Who knows how many have trodden these old paths before? Only the paths themselves can tell us that, for they alone remain. All else travels on them, and it then is gone. Maybe a couple of centuries ago, like even back in the Dark Ages, a lone traveler walked right here where the roots and rocks are. I can almost see it. Yeah. And another man approaches from the opposite direction, also on foot. Friend? Foe? The first man has a sack of skins slung over his shoulder. And it looks like a second one has a bow. And something like, it looks like maybe a sword. Perhaps an archer by trade. Dresses like he's from another land. Different customs. Been on foot for a while. Most likely had a horse somewhere back the line. Both of them keep walking forward, but slow down. Within about 50 feet left between them, they stop and display empty hands. Name's Jack. What's yours, friend? And the second man doesn't say anything, but waves for Jack to come on, then turns around and heads back the way he came, and then looks back at Jack and motions again. When traveling over the land and through the forests, a man's sensibilities hone in their sharpness, like his ability to know when someone or something's watching him, or to know when danger approaches out of sight. Right now, both men trusted these perceptions, and they walked together, and without looking behind themselves or anyone else more than once. But Jack doesn't know what lies on the path ahead, whereas the other man does. And now Jack notices a mark on the other's arm, a mark that betrays his allegiance to a dangerous and largely secretive clan, the members of which live and die to serve the bloodthirsty queen of an enemy country a good 2 fortnights distant by horse. And the other sees Jack noticing the mark. By rights and by tradition alike, Jack should now place the other under arrest by any possible means, thereby ending the other's foreign allegiance and ending his journey right here and now on this path. A journey the likes of which, for almost 3 centuries, the district constables and tax collectors have declared as strictly forbidden. And as all men know, the other has the right to defend his life and its integrity. But still, the two men walk together in silence, going the direction from which the second had initially come. Then, just around a bend, the path opens into a small, worn, circular area, in the center of which stands a waist-high structure made out of wood and rope and cloth. The two men stop there and stay a while. Mike, I know what we have to do. We stopped. Here in this wider area right here, we need to make something really cool. Like what? I'm going to smoke a cigarette. I rolled a 2 and I handed him 1. I lit mine and passed him my little box of wooden matches. A thing, Mike, like a pedestal or something, right here in the middle of the path where you could stand around it. You know, like where travelers could take a break. You mean like a rest stop kind of thing. That sounds really cool. We could have it flat on top and have a way for them to leave a sign that they'd stop there. A logbook, registry, a record of their names that stays right here. Exactly. Mike, everybody's safe here, you know. Even mortal enemies are friends here if they happen to meet here in passing. And nobody has to say anything, but they can think about where they've come from and where they're going. And then everybody goes their separate ways without looking back, except for maybe one time, just to be sure. Okay, then, he pronounced. He said, this is the right time and this is the right place. We have to do it. Let's get some wood. And right away he picked up some straight enough for legs. And right away he picked up some straight enough for legs about waist high. Me too, so did I. I put out my smoke. Then I cut a length of thin vine from around a tree with my knife. An open section of thick bark lied not far away, so I got it too. And I carved out a top piece about a foot square, and another one a little smaller for a lower support that could also work as a shelf. We put it all together. I even carved holes in the ground for the legs and then stacked a few medium-sized rocks the whole way around them. And we had another cigarette. And we smoked some weed I had. And we didn't say anything. I thought about my life and about where I stood in it right now. And about conscious substance in motion. For an instant, I felt connected to eternal things. Maybe in that same instant, so did Mike. A part of me wanted to stay, but it was time we got back to my car. So we retraced our steps and left that neck of the woods. A couple of weeks later, we found two free-spirited hippie chicks, real sweethearts, with bell-bottom hip-hugger jeans on and long flowing hair. We walked with them through town for a while and talked about the things we like, and about nature, and about conscious substance in motion. Mike suggested a nature walk someplace. I looked over at him. He looked over at me. The girls got excited. So we went and climbed into my sexy little 61 Mercury Comet, white on the outside and red on the inside, with taillights that look like they're winking as they go by. Mike got in the back seat, and we let the girls choose which one gets in the front and which one gets in the back, which they did. And as we pulled out, they rolled down their windows and stuck out their heads and smiled. I felt connected again. Who wouldn't? Well, we arrived and got out. Mike and I acted as though we'd never gone there before, let alone ever walked on the path. All with some unforeseen and unexpected marvel of nature popping up around every turn, you know. At first we pointed out to them the birds and the bees and the wild flowers. And while the girls looked at them with eyes full of delight, Mike and I looked at the girls with eyes full of similar affairs. But as we went on, our talk gradually shifted toward the imaginative, and we told tales of foot travelers of old, on paths just like this one, and their dress, and their fortitude, and their allegiances, and their needs for a break and a smoke now and then along their sojourns. One of the girls said it would be nice to smoke some weed right now along on our own sojourn. We all agreed, and wished we had some with us. But I said I'm sure we'd soon stumble upon a place where we could all rest for a spell. Then Mike made a few predictions about what might show up beyond the next rise or around the next corner. Not enough to give ourselves away, but enough to sprinkle a little magic into the adventure. And it worked pretty well. I joined in, taking things another step. And I told about how that back in the olden days there used to be places on trails just like this one, where a person could stop and take a breather. And there'd be a thing there called a pipe stand. It'd be like a pedestal or a little table made out of wood. And there might be a little place on it where there'd be some smoking pipes and a sack or two of tobacco or other smokables, maybe even some herbal remedies, and a piece of bark or paper where people could scratch or write their names if they wanted to. And they could leave some of their own tobacco if they had any to leave, and a smoking pipe if they wanted to trade off. I told about that it was all up to the stoppers-by to keep the tradition alive, and it served its purpose well through the centuries, providing a timeless sense of community in the lonely, wearisome, and sometimes dangerous wilds. And maybe a chance to reflect on the deep matters of life and to breathe out the old and back in the new. The sort of thing that invokes from the soul a feeling of purpose under the sun of the day and the stars of the night, and of kinship with others unknown except for their names. The girls and Mike all said that a pipe stand like that must have been a good thing, and it sure would be nice if one still stood somewhere. I widened my eyes, tightened my mouth, and solemnly nodded. And then we got to the turn. As we got close, I brightened up and predicted that there probably still is one around somewhere. And maybe we would even stumble upon it any second now. The girls looked hopeful and cheerful and pretty, and honestly, a little in need of rest. We rounded the turn, and then we all stopped, unable to believe our good luck. There it stood in front of us. A real pipe stand right there in the middle of the path where it widened out a bit. After some exchanged glances and double takes and some rubbing of eyes to make sure they weren't lying to us, I explained that this is exactly the kind of thing what I was just now saying about. And that absolutely, this is a moment that was meant to happen. We all approached it and examined it. Somebody had tied an old t-shirt around it to keep out the rain from the lower shelf. Well, actually, the t-shirt was mine. And on the shelf, we found a bag of tobacco and a little bag of weed and my weed pipe I'd put in there 2 weeks ago, and a little box of wooden matches, and a piece of bark with 2 names scratched into it. King of the World and the Mystery Man. I told the girls, I'm King of the World. Mike's girl filled in the blank, grinning at him. Well, then you must be the Mystery Man. He said that yes, he must be. But they didn't believe us. They believed in the story, and in good fortune, and in the magic of the moment. And together they said, the pipe stand. And they looked happy. We smoked some of the weed, and then didn't say anything for a little bit, and thought about life stuff. And I said that probably nothing like this would ever happen again in the world. And so it's special. We all nodded and felt safe. Then Mike said the darndest thing I ever heard him say. I wonder what it would take to make the pipe stand. To make the pipe stand? To make the pipe stand? Whoa. It doesn't get much better than that, believe me. What it would take to make the pipe stand? I licked my lips as though to say something, but nothing came out. So I bit them instead. Nobody said anything else at all. Then all at once the girls looked at each other, And they up and laid down right on the dirt. Mike and I walked off a short way and picked some wild flowers. We returned with them and stuck them in our girl's long flowing hair. The magic took its natural course. And while it did, the passing of all things stopped passing for a little while. And we all felt the wonder and the stillness of peace and love. Then the girls made their marks on the piece of bark, and Mike and I scratched on our real names, and we put it back on the little shelf and covered it all back over with the shirt. Then we pulled ourselves together and started back the way we'd come. Mike turned and looked back once. I did too. Then so did the girls, who were real sweethearts. The pairs of us held hands and helped each other over the rough spots along the path. And then my mind went somewhere else again. At that contemplative and copulative interval we all just left behind us, I paused between arrival and departure, between evolution and devolution, between life and death, between conscious substance in motion and its wondrous qualities on the one hand, and meaningless quantities of on and off logic states and electromagnetic fluctuations on the other hand. Two phases of the same thing, yet the first one filled with anticipation and purpose, and its counterpart filled with nothing. I thought it again. Quantities, logic states, and electromagnetic fluctuations. Everything, quantities, logic states, and electromagnetic fluctuations. Maybe the cosmic screen of consciousness upon which the drama of life is cast is really just a poetic notion dreamed up by those who once upon a time looked up and saw the heavenly spheres revolving around this little terrestrial one, for all of us, standing here center stage. But it's not really that way at all. Maybe there is only one brain, hooked up to wires through which mathematical information passes, making electrical pulses turn on and off this and that and the other brain cell, generating perceived experiences that have no true existence, all according to the whims of some eternally mad demon that doesn't even have a damn to give about it. That's my real fear. The greatest tragedy, the final horror, that neither life nor death have any significance whatsoever, and that both are the great unknown. We got in the comet with its winking tail lights. The girls once again held their heads out their windows, and they smiled. I thanked my lucky stars for them. I don't know about Mike, but at the same instant, I also wondered, why did we even come here, really? And now why do we have to go so soon? We never saw the girls again. I hope we gave them some part of ourselves that took hold, got loved, and grew into new life, for whatever it's worth. I hope. But beyond all shadow of the proverbial doubt, our four names are inscribed somewhere in the woods, where we'd trod together on the path and communed for a spell at the last pipe stand, inhaling the fragrant smoke of truce, and had done what lied before us there to do. And then we'd looked back only once each, just to be sure.